Where does our perception of reality come from?
If I told you I was a doctor, would you believe me? Probably not, right? But what about if I had a document from Harvard telling you I was a doctor? Then would you believe me?
That's what we're going to talk about. Societal delusions.
Boom.
We had this idea from the Diary of a CEO, right? It's a podcast Anderson listens to quite a bit. And I'll let him explain this episode just because you watched it first.
Yeah. So essentially, there's a portion of the podcast where Stephen, the host, asks Dr. K about narcissism and what he thinks essentially about narcissism, what narcissism is in today's society. And so I won't be explaining it as well as he will, or he did. So if you wanna have more details and stuff, just go directly to the podcast. We can put it down below. Or
Yeah, we'll link it down below.
But yeah, so essentially, when talking about narcissism, he talks about the ego, and this is from a yogic definition, essentially. So the ego. No, it's fine.
I'm not even trying to make fun of you, but when we were watching the video, he was like, "Do you know that word?" Vocabulary, you don't have it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but yeah, so essentially, so he talks about the ego, right? And how this ego is kind of fed on external value and, how it's fed on external value and how maybe others perceive us. And normally the dangers of this ego, it's that normally they're fed on abstract things. And so then he goes on to explain what abstract things are. And so he takes this example of a document, right? Since he's a doctor from Harvard, he says the only thing that makes us agree that I'm a doctor or that somebody's a doctor is because they have a document proving that they're a doctor, right? But if you were to find somebody in the street and they're hurt and you look on their body, like biologically, there's absolutely nothing to prove that they're a doctor. Maybe you can say, okay, they're originally Indian or they're African, they're Caucasian, they're male, female, whatever, but doctor will not appear in their autopsy. Yeah. So then he goes on to explain this societal delusion, right? That this document that we're all in agreement proves that he's a doctor. And so it led me to think about what other things do we simply consider true, right? Or a reality because we are all, or society is in agreement that this certain document or this certain thing has value. And so, yeah, that's the basis of this podcast.
I think we can, just to make it like extra clear exactly, because societal delusion is pretty, it's something most people might not have heard of. Basically what a societal delusion is, you explained it a bit, but it's just something that...
Not good enough.
I'm just trying to make it even clearer, It's basically something that all of society, basically everyone agrees on, a perception that we all have of something that isn't based off necessarily a factual reason or like a logical reason, right? We all believe it because of factors that we all came up with, but it's not necessarily something that's concrete, right? Like the example you gave of a doctor with like their piece of paper that proves they're a doctor, but it's not like something they have within them,
Yeah.
I think another way to make it even more clear is...
like your
so you're just trying to one-up me. All right.
No, it's just that for people like me, I tried to, in my head, it didn't necessarily make sense. I think I told you guys when we were watching the video. And it was, there is something concrete about being a doctor. Like, the diploma means something. It's not just a piece of paper that you give some value. It's, you went for school during 11 years to have a certain, knowledge. And this knowledge is concrete. Nobody can take that away from you. And so what does it mean? I didn't understand what he meant when he said that, if you look within me, there's nothing. There's knowledge. And that knowledge is what makes you a doctor. And the example I gave is if you go into a village, somebody that maybe doesn't have the same education as him, a Harvard education, or even just no education at all, and yet has this certain knowledge to cure people, to help people when they're sick, I would still consider them to be a doctor. And so I don't know if the idea comes from that piece of paper. But then again, it's what you guys were saying. It is the social delusion that because you know this thing, you're a doctor.
Yeah.
And you can cure people,
See,
But, yeah.
within the context of the village, for example, everybody that knows he has that knowledge will consider him a doctor. But if you were to go like somewhere like France, just having the knowledge isn't
Wouldn't be
necessarily enough. You know, you have to have the proof that you went to and had an education and show your diploma and show that you're an actual doctor. Even though you have the knowledge, people won't consider you that, because in this society, what we've come to an agreement is that you have to have this education, and you have to have the proper documentation that proves that you're a doctor.
And like an actual practical example, I have family members that technically were doctors in Angola, and after when they moved to like Portugal or somewhere else, they had to have like an additional year of education to be able to have the equivalence of a doctor in another country, simply because that's the social agreement, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, man, I'm just saying that. So it's, I mean, because I understood when you guys explained it to me, but I just wanted to, for people like me that are like, but that doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, so maybe we should give another layer to this idea. It's like like social or societal, because I think that's the word he uses, might also be cultural, because depending on the country or depending on the place you are, it might be different.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think you had a specific example though.
About cultural?
No, just about societal delusions.
Well, yeah. One thing that it made me think about was, and we're about to get a bit deep here. Trust me, we're not gonna go deep into the subject, but it's basically about like racism.
Always.
Yeah, I'm black. I always have to go there. I'm sorry. But yeah, I thought about why exactly racism exists, and whether it's something that has always existed or that it's a societal delusion that came to be at some point in time. And so I did some research on the subject, and the term race was actually something that was kind of invented. It first appeared in the 16th century. So during the time that, slavery really started to become normalized, and like, especially in Africa, became a real thing. Before then, people were identified by their tribes, basically by their ethnicity. You weren't considered inferior because you're black. You're just from this tribe, and you're from this place geographically, and blah, blah, blah. People had slaves from all over the world, like slaves of war, slaves, people who owed you money, whether they're black, white, from the Middle East, whatever. Yeah. And then at some point, when colonization really started, that's when slavery of black people kind of became the norm. People started, really taking black slaves specifically. And I was wondering why and how that came to be. And so basically I came to the conclusion that it was kind of a way to justify what they were doing specifically to black people, like kind of searching for my words here.
What
are you trying to say?
But yeah, basically they tried to create this delusion that
this narrative,
this narrative that black people are inferior, black people are savages, black people are, whatever, need education, need our help, need saving. And they instilled that in their populations. And that's why everybody started to gain this same perception, this societal delusion around black people. And well, that was in place for so many centuries that
the norm.
Yeah, it became the norm. Black people are, I don't know, dumber. They don't have the same capacities. They're savages or whatever. But at the end of the day, like you said, biologically, we're all human. We all have the same capacities. And it just became normalized for black people to be slaves and black people to be considered whatever. So at the end, the conclusion was that kind of racism is a societal delusion, because there's no biological reason for us to be inferior. There's no biological reason explaining why black people should be slaves. It's just a way to kind of justify what happened. And it became a norm. To this day, we feel the impacts of what happened. But yeah, I felt like that was a pretty impactful, powerful of what societal delusion and our perception of one community can do to the world,
Yeah. What were you looking for? I saw you. Sorry, I'm sorry. I saw you were looking for something.
No, I was just looking. I was trying to find the etymology of the word race.
Okay. No, I was like, he doesn't trust his friend. He's gonna double check with-
No,
No, but yeah, I mean,
Because like I was wondering, because you spoke like of the origin, sorry, of the word race or like race, but after I was looking like who even came up with the word
Race.
like, you know.
I don't think you could find. I mean, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but just to go back to what you were saying, like I was trying to think of other examples like that, but I honestly can't think of much. I mean, I can think in the negative sense, but when you try to think about it in the positive, I can't really come up with anything.
Yeah, but a societal delusion that's
Yeah, that's
had a positive
or that's
impact on
benefited
society.
And I wonder why. If it's just like
No,
human
I mean,
nature, or if we can't like, or if it's just me that can't think.
No, I mean we were just at
Yeah.
Jose's
Go
sister's
ahead, go
house,
ahead.
and I mean while you were taking a shower, we were discussing with a few of the people there that we were going to talk about this topic, and we were kind of looking to find like maybe like a positive twist to a societal delusion. And as this woman spoke about, what was she speaking of? Oh, they started speaking about hope.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
Real quick.
And
Yeah,
how,
true.
I mean, many of the things that we do as people is led by hope. Like, oh, hope that I'm going to get a good job so then I can like help my family or so on. Like, there's so many different reasons, but it's this like societal delusion that everything we do is kind of led to the reasoning that we want to achieve more, at least.
I do agree that it's kind of a delusion
It
because whenever like something's going bad, people are going to tell you as long as you have hope, it'll get better.
Okay, yeah.
You know, things will be okay. And sometimes that's true for the lucky people,
Yeah.
but not necessarily. But I guess it's
But I
a
guess it's a
delusion
good
that's
one.
yeah, it's a good one, and it's one that's kind of essential for us to, you know, always strive for more and
Yeah.
not lose hope.
I think
And
it was
then-
you that said American Dream.
Yeah, that's what I was
go ahead.
going to lead to. That then it made me think of the American dream, because essentially all they're selling is hope. And it's so ingrained like in their culture, and even like immigrants, people move there because they've been sold this dream, this societal delusion that as long as they work hard and it's merited, their hard work will pay off and they can achieve anything they want. And so I think like as many of the problems that the United States has currently, like that is one thing that I don't think the rest of the world can take away from them. They have been able to lead many of the world's issues simply because when you look at an American, they have this mentality of, okay, we're going to be the best, we're going to be the greatest. And I think that leads to something, to a certain achievement and a certain excellence.
I was gonna ask you, do you think it can be dangerous? Not in a negative sense, because I mean in that case it's just bad, but even when it's positive, do you think it can be dangerous? Because imagine the millions of people that went to the US just to follow that dream or to have their opportunity, and they get there and they have no support or nothing happens for them. And like, yes, it's a delusion, but at what point it just I mean, I don't think it's a lie, because a lot of people did manage to get the American dream, but it's just, it can be dangerous. No, I don't know. Because to add to that, Harry said,
Damn names? No, I'm kidding.
oh, you can bleep that out. I'm sorry. But he said, like an example of it is social media, and how we're constantly seeing like people reaching the best places in the world and the most money at 20, like just creating this idea that you can get anything at a super early age, and creating this not impossible narrative, but this like a very unlikely narrative that ends up making people depressed or sad or not believe in themselves. And I feel like it gets to a point where it can just be very negative on people, even though it's a positive thing.
Yeah, I don't think I have like a specific answer to that,
Yeah.
but it did make me think of like if we go back to the original like prompt, I guess, of what we started speaking about. You did give like at least like a concrete agreement, which is a document, right? And I think when we see those things on social media and stuff, when you kind of realize that it is a delusion, like when you realize, or at least when you're aware of the fact that it's simply people are in agreement, or we all agree that we think that that's success and stuff, that at least gives you some step back to be like, okay, if it's a delusion, that means or I can choose to like follow it, I guess, like take some inspiration from it, use this abstract thing to drive me, or simply I choose not to partake and take some step back and realize that, okay, yeah, that's just a delusion. Social media isn't like
The reality.
The reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my only take.
And it's interesting that you talked about social media, because there is also a section in the video that he mentions kind of where our confidence comes from. And he was talking about comparing where it comes from today to where it comes from, where it used to come from back in the day before social media, you know. And he said that before, it used to come more from an internal place, like your confidence came from what you perceive yourself to be, you know. Back in the day, like if you were strong, if you were smart or whatever, you'd probably have that confidence. But today, your confidence comes from an external point of view, because most of our lives we pass observing others. You know, when we're on social media, like you said, we'll be looking at celebrities, we'll be looking at, you know, models, we'll be looking at rich people doing things that we, I guess, love to do.
Yeah.
And so unless we achieve that, we'll never
Be satisfied.
and be confident. And he said that basically in order to achieve confidence, you first need to achieve it internally and not try to strive to get it from an external point of view, you know?
Yeah.
And to add to that, one thing that he speaks about is like how normally when, especially as like young men or as men in general, when we start to feel like maybe sad, lonely, not confident in ourselves, we start building on these abstract things, which is like, okay, I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to speak properly. I'm going to, I don't know, like get a better job, stuff like that. But that's all, and like, that's not fixing myself. It's creating like
Another persona.
And after, it's like what people have come to love is not, it's not me. It's this sort of persona that I've created. And it becomes like a very dangerous game because, I mean, partially, yeah, you will become a better person probably for working out and stuff. But sometimes it creates kind of like this, I guess, like this imposter syndrome of, am I really this person that they like, or is it just because of what I have and stuff like that?
It was also mentioned that, you know, the rate of kind of feeling lonely increased.
Yeah.
And that really spoke to me. Not that I feel lonely, but that I could totally understand where that sentiment comes from, because people aren't exposed to the real you. They're exposed to like they're not exposed to the real you. They're exposed to like the persona that you're trying to put on in order to impress them. They never really interact with you. And so even when you reach success, because they don't know like what you truly feel like, you'll feel lonely because you can't really be who you are to that person, you know? And I found that super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to gather what you both said. And do you think the best way to approach it is to realize that they are delusions, and therefore you can use it, like you should be aware of it and use it to your advantage instead of just following it without like acknowledging it? Like hope, for example, if I acknowledge that it's a social delusion, I know that it's not necessarily true, but at the end of the day, I know it helps me like go through stuff. So the secret is to acknowledge it. I don't know.
I have a hard time with the hope example, because I do get what you were trying to say, but at the same time, I'm someone that really believes in, you know, hope, and as long as you believe and always strive for the best, you'll be able to achieve it one day. And I guess maybe that is because I'm kind of delusional.
Indoctrinated.
Yeah, I
But
guess
you are delusional.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
absolutely delusional for sure.
But I was gonna say, like, I don't think like, I mean, this is gonna get deep and maybe a bit like controversial and stuff. But like when we spoke about racism and race, if you think about it, the societal delusion, when it was beneficial to a mass of people, no one really cared about the consequences. So they simply followed this social delusion or societal delusion. And so I think that's what we kind of do in our day-to-day life. Like if I want to achieve something, I'm going to find the little social delusions or little societal agreements that like benefit me. And so so what you're saying, it's like, I think every day you like you follow these societal agreements because you think it'll give you best. If one day you think that hope won't actually help you at all, I don't think you'll follow the societal delusion.
That is true. But all right, so how can we use that as a society to our advantage? It's a hard question, so I mean, you probably won't have the answer, but just try to give it some thought.
I feel like the example that you gave of like the American dream would be an example to follow. Like they were able to instill this mentality in all of their people, and now basically everyone believes that. I mean, today a bit less, right? But for a long time, everyone's dream was kind of the American dream. You know, you strive for greatness, you strive to always be better, you strive to yeah, exactly. And if in our personal lives we could do that with our close friends, or even on a country level, like for Angola, for example, if we were able to instill a real sense of culture and mission for the whole country, I feel like that would be a great way to use kind of societal delusions in our advantage, you know.
I completely agree with everything you just said. And in our notes, like we had kind of spoke about this, which was the American dream, but also how, like, for example, here in France, it's very common when something good happens, instead of saying, oh yeah, it's good, it's great, they go, oh, c'est pas mauvais, c'est pas terrible, which means it's oh, it's not bad, you know, it's not terrible. It's like an ironic way of saying it's good.
Yeah.
And even like in the academic system, like no teacher will ever give you a 20 out of 20.
French teachers will literally tell you there's nothing wrong with your paper. Like, honestly, I didn't find a single mistake, but perfect doesn't exist, so I can't give you 20.
Yeah. But it's like it creates this social delusion first that you can't be perfect. And I'm not saying anybody will ever be perfect, but I'm saying it's like
you can strive.
It directly puts you in a situation of inferiority, in my head at least. And then it made me think back to a few other cultures. Like, for example, the Japanese, one thing that they're extremely known for is perfection. Like when they build a knife, when they build a car, they do it to a level of detail that is perfect. And so they do believe in perfection. But to reach perfection, you have to be patient and work extremely hard. And you can see that in their population. Which is something I really appreciate. Like, they'll take the time and follow the details. And going back to Angola and social delusions, like what you just, it was really like getting my mind thinking. It's like, I think that the challenge is to get some societal delusions, not to be a delusion, but a reality, an agreement that we all decide to follow. Like 3 weeks ago, I had to prepare this presentation in geopolitics of business, explaining why Africa would be the market of the future. And basically it was a presentation saying why the African continent will be the base of the world in 2050, essentially.
And it will be. It will be. Huh? Bet your money on that.
And
invest, kids.
During the presentation, I put a little clip of, I believe it was Cristina Duarte. I had already spoken about her here, but she's the ex-minister of finance for Cape Verde. And she speaks essentially about the problems of financing in Africa and all of that. But after, there's a section of her answer where she speaks about the real issue is simply a question of mentality. Like Africa loses $500 billion in mismanagement of funds every year. And that's not because we don't have the technology or the people or the brain to do it. It's simply because we have allowed some systems to be in place that do not benefit people. And as a people, like as African people, we have constantly let these things slide because we have come to an agreement that it's okay.
It's our reality.
It's our reality. It's this societal delusion that, it's always been like this.
It's always going to be
They've given us independence and stuff like that. And so to change that, to be like, okay, the new societal delusion is that there will be no more corruption. We will do things to improve our people. We will be giving education. We will, strive for growth. I think if you instill not only this delusion, but truly make it a reality in people's mentality, that's when you can make a change.
Deep.
No,
damn.
No, yeah.
Like that?
No.
Clip that.
Yeah, don't forget. No, but
That my missed podcast.
what you said right now made me think of the previous video that we did, stereotypes, and maybe the secret to creating positive social delusions is to break and create positive stereotypes. Because the common stereotype is Africans are corrupt, African governments are corrupt. And, we just keep on feeding into that narrative.
Yeah.
And so why would we change? That's who we,
Yeah, it becomes, that's who we are.
And so if we change that narrative, if we change that belief and just go into, no, Africans are very honest. We like doing things right. We're perfectionists. We want to grow. We want to become the first economy in the world. It's going to create that culture, you were saying, and it's going to make us actually get somewhere, because it's going to create that belief in kids and even adults that once we said that have lost that belief, that hope, create it and put it back into people. And it's no, we're here to do something positive.
And even if you think of how Africans got their independence, it's because at some point there was a switch, a new societal delusion, new societal agreement saying, no, enough is enough. We're going to get our independence. We're going to do our own thing, And so
interesting how it's all linked.
It is, yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you really can't link it with stereotypes, because for example, crazy stereotype, all right? all Chinese people are good at math.
Hey,
whoa!
All Asians are good at math. I said stereotype. What I'm saying is, I wouldn't.
We're on a good path here, buddy.
What I'm saying is, I wouldn't mind Africa having a stereotype like that. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
The thing is, I mean, I don't know if it's true, but it's true that a lot of Asians.
Whoa!
Wait. Are good at math.
The thing is, we said all stereotypes are based off some level of truth. Yeah. And so if we manage to instill that stereotype, I guess it'll become a reality eventually.
It'll become a social delusion.
Indeed. Well, thank you.
I didn't tell you could end the video.
Oh, damn. Okay. Just to, I guess, conclude all of this, right? What societal delusions do you think would be able to help a country? That was something that we kept trying to figure out.
We couldn't find it, so it's really interesting that we managed to do it.
Yeah, but comment down below maybe some extra ones that we probably didn't think about. And yeah, just let us know what you think on the podcast, anything that you would add. And yeah, thank you for listening. This is Rethink. Tell us what you think of the format. We're still trying to change it up a bit more. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Subscribe.